April 14, 2026, 72 hours ago, the United States Navy launched what has become the largest maritime blockade operation since the Cuban Missile Crisis. More than 60 warships, 12 submarines, a full aerial surveillance network now wrapped around Iran. Every port is sealed, every shipping lane under watch, every vessel flagged by the Iranian turned back at gunpoint. The objective was brutally simple: cut off 95% of Iran's imports and 100% of its oil exports, starve the regime into submission. And the price of doing it is already staggering: $800 billion in naval assets, manpower, and operational costs projected across the next 6 months. By any measure, this was designed to break Iran fast. But what came next did not collapse. It was not surrender. It was not panic. It was an activation, a response that signals Tehran may have already chosen its answer. And if that is true, then this blockade may not be the end of escalation. It may be the mechanism that detonates the next phase. Iran just opened 5 new war fronts simultaneously across 4 countries, deploying proxy forces that Washington thought were dormant, neutralized, or under control. Houthi forces in Yemen launched their largest naval operation in history. Iraqi militias fired ballistic missiles at American bases for the first time since 2020. Hezbollah mobilized 50,000 fighters to Israel's northern border. Syrian resistance cells attacked U.S. positions in eastern Syria. And sleeper networks across the Arabian Peninsula that nobody knew existed just went operational. This is not retaliation. This is a coordinated strategic response designed to turn America's blockade into America's trap. Over the next 12 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly which proxy forces Iran activated, why the U.S. naval blockade created the conditions for this expansion, and what happens when an $800 billion defensive operation becomes a multi-front catastrophe that Washington cannot contain. Let me be very clear about what this blockade actually is. The United States did not just park a few destroyers in the Strait of Hormuz. This is a total maritime exclusion zone enforced by the Fifth Fleet, supported by assets from the Sixth Fleet in the Mediterranean, and backed by the most extensive surveillance architecture ever deployed in the region. The naval cordon extends from the Red Sea through the Arabian Sea to the Persian Gulf. 14 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers equipped with Aegis combat systems, 3 aircraft carrier strike groups, the USS Abraham Lincoln, USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, and USS Gerald R. Ford. 9 nuclear attack submarines operating in rotation beneath the surface. P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft flying continuous sorties, tracking every vessel within 500 nautical miles. The operational cost is staggering. Each carrier strike group costs approximately $35 million per day to operate. Multiply that by 3 groups over 180 days, and you are looking at $18.9 billion just for the carrier operations alone. Add destroyers, submarines, aircraft sorties, logistics support, and extended crew rotations, and the Pentagon is burning through roughly $4.4 billion per month. That is the source of the $800 billion projection if this blockade holds for 6 months. But the economic damage extends far beyond naval expenses. Global shipping insurance rates for Middle Eastern routes have increased by 400%. Oil tankers that used to pay $50,000 per day in charter fees are now commanding $250,000. Brent crude oil, which was trading at $107 per barrel 2 weeks ago, hit $138 yesterday morning. That is a 29% increase in 14 days, the fastest surge since the 1973 oil embargo. European natural gas futures spiked 67% as traders priced in the risk that LNG shipments from Qatar might be disrupted. China, which imports 60% of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz, announced emergency strategic petroleum reserve releases and threatened to designate the blockade as an act of economic warfare against Beijing. India, Japan, and South Korea issued joint diplomatic protests. The global economy is hemorrhaging, and we are only on day 3 of this operation. But here is what the Pentagon did not calculate. When you deploy a blockade designed to strangle Iran economically, you remove Iran's incentive to avoid escalation. If Iranian oil cannot reach markets anyway, if the economy is collapsing regardless, if imports are already cut off completely, what does Iran have to lose by activating every proxy force it spent 20 years building? The answer is nothing. And that is exactly what just happened. Front number one, Yemen. The Houthis, officially known as Ansar Allah, control approximately 70% of Yemen's population and all of its Red Sea coastline. For the past 2 years, they had been operating under a fragile ceasefire that kept attacks on Saudi Arabia and maritime traffic limited. That ceasefire ended 48 hours ago. On April 12th, Houthi forces launched a coordinated strike against commercial shipping in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the choke point where the Red Sea narrows to just 18 miles wide before opening into the Gulf of Aden. 6 anti-ship ballistic missiles were fired at container vessels transiting toward the Suez Canal. 14 naval drones, explosive-laden remote-controlled boats, were deployed against tankers waiting at anchorage points. 3 vessels were struck. 1 container ship, the MSC Loretta, sustained catastrophic damage and is currently listing 23 degrees, unable to maneuver. Another tanker reported a hull breach below the waterline. The 3rd vessel, a bulk carrier flagged to Greece, caught fire and had to be abandoned. All crew were evacuated. No fatalities confirmed yet, but the shipping lane is now effectively closed. Over 90 commercial vessels have diverted away from the Bab el-Mandeb route in the past 36 hours. That means ships heading from Asia to Europe can no longer use the Suez Canal. They have to reroute around the southern tip of Africa, adding 14 days and approximately $500,000 in fuel costs per voyage. The insurance industry is already pricing this in. Lloyd's of London announced that war risk premiums for Red Sea transits have increased from 0.5% of cargo value to 3.5%. For a fully loaded container ship carrying $200 million in goods, that is an additional $6 million in insurance costs per trip. But the Houthis did not stop there. They also fired 2 ballistic missiles at Saudi Arabia's Jizan economic city, a $30 billion infrastructure project on the Red Sea coast that includes an oil refinery, a port, and industrial zones. Both missiles were intercepted by Saudi Patriot batteries, but the message was clear. If the U.S. blockades Iran, the Houthis will blockade Saudi Arabia. Front number 2, Iraq. This is the most dangerous activation because it targets American forces directly. There are approximately 2,500 U.S. troops stationed in Iraq, most of them at Ain al-Assad Air Base in Anbar Province and Union III base near Baghdad International Airport. These bases had been relatively quiet since 2021. That ended on April 13th. Kataib Hezbollah, one of the most powerful Iranian-backed Iraqi militias, launched a coordinated rocket and drone assault on both installations. Ain al-Assad was hit by 14 rockets fired from mobile launchers positioned in the western desert. 6 drones penetrated the base perimeter and detonated near aircraft hangars and ammunition storage facilities. The Pentagon confirmed 9 American soldiers were wounded, 2 critically. Base infrastructure sustained damage, and flight operations were temporarily suspended. Union III took 8 rockets, all of which struck inside the perimeter. No American casualties were reported there, but Iraqi security personnel working alongside U.S. forces sustained injuries. The significance is not just the attack itself, it is the coordination. Both bases were struck within a 15-minute window, suggesting centralized command and control. Intelligence analysts believe the operation was planned in Iran and executed by Iraqi proxies following Iranian directives. But here is the escalation that changes everything. Kataib Hezbollah's spokesman released a video statement announcing that American forces in Iraq are now considered legitimate military targets as long as the U.S. blockade remains in effect. He specifically stated, "Every day the blockade continues, we will strike. Every base, every convoy, every American presence in Iraq will face fire until the siege is lifted." This is not rhetoric. This is a declared policy of sustained attacks. The U.S. has 2,500 troops in Iraq and no legal authorization to conduct large-scale military operations there. Iraq's parliament passed a resolution in 2020 demanding the withdrawal of all foreign forces. The Iraqi government, caught between Iranian pressure and American partnership, is paralyzed. Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani issued a statement condemning the attacks, but stopped short of authorizing Iraqi forces to suppress the militias. Why? Because the militias are integrated into Iraq's official security structure. Many Kataib Hezbollah fighters are former members of the Popular Mobilization Forces, which is legally part of the Iraqi armed forces. Suppressing them would mean the Iraqi military fighting itself, which could trigger civil war. So the attacks continue, and American forces have no good response. They can defend themselves, but they cannot launch offensive operations without Iraqi government approval, which is not coming. Front number 3, Lebanon. Hezbollah has been in a state of careful restraint since the November 2024 ceasefire that ended the last round of fighting with Israel. That restraint just collapsed. Reports confirmed by Lebanese sources indicate that Hezbollah has mobilized an estimated 50,000 fighters to positions along the Israeli border. This is not a symbolic deployment. This is a war footing. Israeli Defense Forces detected movement of Hezbollah's Radwan Special Forces units into forward positions in southern Lebanon. These are the elite units trained for cross-border raids and tunnel infiltration. Israeli intelligence also confirmed the activation of Hezbollah's precision-guided missile units. These are the weapons that change the equation. For years, Hezbollah's rocket arsenal was primarily unguided. You fire them in the general direction of Israel and hope some hit military or civilian targets. The interception rate was high and the strategic impact was limited. But Hezbollah has been quietly upgrading. Iranian-supplied guidance kits have been retrofitted onto thousands of existing rockets, turning them into precision weapons. Intelligence estimates suggest Hezbollah now possesses between 3,000 and 5,000 precision-guided munitions capable of hitting specific targets in Israel with accuracy measured in meters, not kilometers. And the targets they have prepared for are not random. Hezbollah has detailed targeting plans for Israel's critical infrastructure: power stations, water desalination plants, natural gas platforms, military air bases, arms depots, and command centers. If Hezbollah launches a full-scale attack using precision weapons, Israel's home front faces a level of destruction it has never experienced. The Israeli government knows this. That is why Prime Minister Netanyahu convened an emergency security cabinet meeting on April 13th. The discussion centered on one question: does Israel launch a preemptive strike to destroy Hezbollah's capabilities before they are used? Or does Israel wait and risk a coordinated assault that could cripple national infrastructure? There is no good answer. A preemptive strike means war with Lebanon, which means war with Iran's most capable proxy. Waiting means giving Hezbollah the initiative to strike first, potentially with devastating effect. Front number 4, Syria. U.S. forces maintain a presence in eastern Syria, officially to counter ISIS remnants, but in reality also to control oil fields and prevent Iranian influence from consolidating. There are roughly 900 American troops stationed at bases like Al-Tanf and around the Omar oil fields. These positions are now under attack. On April 12th, pro-Iranian militias operating in Syria launched drone strikes on the Al-Tanf garrison. 5 explosive drones penetrated U.S. air defenses. 2 were shot down. 3 detonated inside the base perimeter. Pentagon sources confirmed damage to infrastructure and light injuries to personnel. But the concerning part is the escalation pattern. The attacks are increasing in frequency and sophistication. Al-Tanf has been struck 4 times in the past 72 hours. Each time, the drones arrive in larger numbers and with better coordination. Intelligence intercepts suggest Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps advisors are directly coordinating these operations from command centers inside Syria. The goal is clear: make the American presence in Syria untenable. Force a withdrawal by turning every base into a target that bleeds resources, personnel, and political will. Front number 5, the sleeper threat. This is the front nobody saw coming. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Bahrain all host significant American military assets. These countries were considered secure rear areas, places where U.S. forces could operate without direct threat. That assumption just shattered. On April 13th, explosions were reported at 2 locations in Saudi Arabia. One near King Khalid Air Base in the southwest, which hosts U.S. military personnel. Another near a logistics facility in Riyadh used by American contractors. Saudi authorities have not confirmed the cause, but regional intelligence sources believe these were sabotage operations conducted by sleeper cells activated by Iranian intelligence. The implications are staggering. If Iran has the capability to strike inside Saudi Arabia, inside the UAE, inside any Gulf state hosting American forces, then there is no safe rear area. Every base, every facility, every logistics hub becomes a potential target, and that is where the blockade becomes a strategic trap. The United States deployed overwhelming naval power to strangle Iran economically, but in doing so, it triggered a response that stretched American forces across 5 active fronts simultaneously. The Pentagon now has to defend bases in Iraq, Syria, and the Gulf states while supporting Israel against Hezbollah, while protecting shipping lanes in the Red Sea, while maintaining the blockade itself. And the math does not work. The United States does not have enough assets in theater to defend every position while maintaining offensive operations. Something has to give. Either the blockade weakens, or the defenses collapse, or American forces start taking casualties at a rate that becomes politically unsustainable in Washington. Iran calculated this. Iran planned for this. And Iran is now executing a strategy that turns America's greatest strength, its naval dominance, into a liability that drains resources while proxy forces attack from 5 directions at once. This is not a war the United States is prepared to fight. This is a war Washington did not think was possible. But it is happening right now, and every day the blockade holds, the proxy attacks intensify. There is no exit strategy. There is no victory condition. There is only escalation and the question of who runs out of resources first. 5 fronts activated, an $800 billion blockade backfiring, proxy armies unleashed from Yemen to Iraq to Lebanon to Syria to inside the Gulf states themselves, global shipping paralyzed, oil at 138 out, American forces under fire in 4 countries. And neither Washington nor Tehran has defined what the end of this looks like.